Welcome to Storytime. Over the past 2 years, we've traveled together through the great myths of India. We've crossed oceans with Hanuman, stood beside Ram in exile, listened to the wisdom of Krishna, witnessed the devotion of Sita, the courage of Draupadi, the sacrifice of Bhishma, and the heartbreak of Karna. We've explored stories of gods and kings, warriors and sages, queens and devotees, demons and villains. But beneath every adventure, every battle, every miracle, there's always been one central question. How do we live wisely? How do we do yoga living? In an effort to answer this question, yes, we've explored numerous stories, but really as a way to explore ourselves. The myths never promised an easy answer. Instead, they gave us characters, beautifully human, deeply flawed, profoundly courageous, who mirror the struggles within ourselves. Today, as we close this chapter together, we return not just to one story, but to the thread connecting them all, the thread of Dharma. We began with the great cosmic forces themselves. Shakti taught us that divine power is not domination. It is creation, protection, transformation, and fierce compassion. She reminds us that strength and softness are not opposites. True power nourishes life, and when imbalance threatened the world, it was Shakti who restored it, not through ego, but through sacred purpose. We met Ganesha, remover of obstacles and guardian of beginnings. But Ganesha's story reminds us that obstacles are not always punishments. Sometimes they are teachers. His broken tusk became a symbol of sacrifice. His elephant head, a symbol of wisdom. His large ears reminded us to listen deeply, and his steady presence teaches patience, humility, and discernment. Yoga, too, asks us, invites us to pause before reacting and to meet obstacles with awareness instead of frustration. Then came Ganga, the celestial river flowing from heaven to earth. Ganga teaches us surrender, purification, and the courage to keep flowing. She descends from the heavens with unimaginable force, yet allows herself to be guided so the world can receive her blessing. Like water, yoga asks us to soften where we cling, release what no longer serves us, and trust movement as the nature of life. Then we journeyed with Ram. Ram teaches integrity, discipline, and devotion to Dharma, even when life becomes painful. Exiled from his kingdom, separated from those he loved, tested again and again, Ram continues to act from responsibility rather than resentment. Yet the Ramayana also reminds us that even noble people struggle with impossible choices. Dharma is rarely simple. Beside Ram stands Hanuman, the embodiment of devotion, courage, humility, and service. Hanuman never seeks glory for himself. His strength comes not from ego, but from love. He leaps across oceans, faces demons, and carries mountains, not because he needs recognition, but because he serves something greater than himself. Hanuman teaches us one of yoga's deepest truths. When the heart is aligned with purpose, we discover strength we never knew we had. And now we arrive at the final chapter. Not an ending, but a return. Because mythology was never meant to live only in books. It lives in the choices we make every day. The Mahabharata, perhaps the greatest of all yoga myths, reminds us that life is rarely simple. Dharma, or right action, is not always obvious. Even the wisest characters struggle, and perhaps nowhere is that more beautifully revealed than in the stories of Karna and Arjuna, two warriors, two rivals, two souls bound by destiny. Karna, abandoned at birth, is rescued and raised by Adhirata, a humble charioteer, and his wife Radha. Though born of royalty, he grows up knowing rejection, humiliation, and injustice. Yet he also knows love, the love of parents who chose to raise him. Arjuna, the celebrated prince and master archer, enters the battlefield of Kurukshetra overwhelmed by grief and doubt, and there, guiding his chariot, stands Krishna himself. One warrior is restored into life by the compassion of a charioteer. The other is guided toward truth by a divine charioteer. Both are saved by those willing to serve. And that is the great irony of the Mahabharata. The charioteer, the symbol of humility, direction, and service, is often wiser than the warrior. Krishna never asks Arjuna to become someone else. He simply teaches him to see clearly. Adhirata, Karna's adopted father, never asks Karna to earn his love. He simply offers it freely. Again and again and again, the myths have taught us strength without compassion becomes destruction. Knowledge without humility becomes manipulation. And duty without wisdom becomes harm. But when truth, compassion, and courage and self-awareness come together, Dharma emerges. But the myths do not only show us heroes, they also show us what happens when wisdom is lost. Ravana tricks and captures Sita, Ram's wife. He is both brilliant and powerful, possessing extraordinary knowledge, discipline, and devotion. Yet his greatness became corrupted by ego, entitlement, and attachment. The tragedy of Ravana is not that he lacked intelligence, but that he lacked humility. These stories endure because they are not about perfect people. They are about human beings trying to navigate impossible choices, just like us, or at least just like me. We've met characters who reflect every part of human nature. Parvati and Shiva teach of loyalty and devotion. Yudhishthira taught us the importance of truth. Blindness of attachment was shown by Dhritarashtra. Bhima showed us that strength should protect, but not dominate. Draupadi reminds us to speak when silence enables injustice. Vidura modeled moral clarity, even when ignored. And Bhishma revealed how even the most noble vows can become harmful when they prevent wise action. Kunti shows us the price of sacrifice when she gives up her son. Adhirata and Radha demonstrate unconditional love and generosity. Jealousy and entitlement result from Duryodhana's failure, and sage Durvasa mirrors our own tendency to react from our wounds when he curses Ganga for her playful giggle. Yoga philosophy tells us that life itself is the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Every day we face moments of confusion, fear, ego, anger, attachment, and doubt. And every day we are invited to choose again, to choose truth over illusion, compassion over cruelty, service over ego, justice over silence, presence over fear. That is Dharma. And perhaps the greatest realization of all is this: we are not meant to walk the path alone. Sometimes we are Arjuna, lost and uncertain. Sometimes we are Karna, wounded and longing to belong. Sometimes we are Draupadi, asking the world to witness injustice. And sometimes we are Bhishma, bound by old vows. And sometimes we are called to become the charioteer, offering steadiness, guidance, compassion, presence. Because yoga is not simply the practice of poses, asanas, it is the practice of becoming more conscious in how we live, love, speak, act, and serve. And perhaps that is the final teaching of all these myths. We are never meant to navigate life alone. Sometimes we are the warrior, sometimes the river, sometimes the protector, sometimes the wounded one, sometimes the seeker standing before an obstacle. Across every story, the teachings return again and again. Shakti teaches sacred power. Ganga teaches surrender and purification. Ganesha teaches wisdom through obstacles. Ram teaches integrity and responsibility. Hanuman teaches devotion and selfless service. Ravana warns against ego without humility. Draupadi teaches courage in the face of injustice. Karna teaches the pain and complexity of loyalty. Arjuna teaches the necessity of self-inquiry. And Krishna teaches conscious action guided by love and wisdom. And yoga gathers all of these teachings into practice. Every breath asks us to return to truth. Every posture asks us to balance effort and ease. And every meditation asks us to observe the ego without becoming trapped by it. The myths were never telling us to worship the heroes. They were asking us to learn from them. The myths were never telling us to become perfect. They were asking us to become aware, to notice. Where are we acting from fear? Where are we clinging? Where are we avoiding truth? Where are we being called to serve, protect, forgive, surrender, or speak? The battlefield lives within all of us, but so does wisdom, compassion, courage, and the power of transformation. So perhaps the greatest lesson from these past 2 years is that Dharma, life's work, is not about never falling or never failing. It's about returning again and again to capital T truth, balance, compassion, and conscious action. So as we close this chapter together, may you carry these teachings forward. The courage of Hanuman, the integrity of Ram, the wisdom of Ganesha, the flow of Ganga, the power of Shakti, the discernment of Krishna, and the humility to recognize the Ravana within before ego takes control. May your practice continue beyond the mat. May your life become the story you want to share. And when life becomes uncertain, may you remember to listen for the quiet voice of the charioteer within. Namaste.